Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we're going to talk about a little Coleman lantern we just got. It was off Craigslist for free. Came with a mantle and 3/4 of a gallon of fuel. Now the fuel is getting really expensive. We recently bought a gallon. It was like $16, so we had to go to the store. It wasn't too much further to get this, but I think it's unusual as we've got a lot of free stuff here recently off Craigslist. And we get the Mantis tiller and the Ryobi trimmer with all the accessories and a bunch of hand tools for gardening and whatnot. And that thing had been up for over a month and nobody called him. I was the only one that called on it and got all that stuff. And this guy had listed for 2 weeks and said he had 7 callers and nobody showed up. So we were lucky number 8. But anyway, the Coleman lanterns have been around for a really long time, and in the comments, if you'd like me to do a full story on the history of them and show the different models and how to maintain them and things like that, let me know. I've had them for many, many years and know a lot about them. Use them all the time because this year, weather-wise, was a little different than most. You know, we had a real long dry spell, and then within a week we had temperature dropping over 40 degrees and rain and wind, and so winter finally got here. It's even starting to snow in the mountains, which is nice. But anyway, so this one was made in December of 1988, and they're date stamped on the bottom for almost any Coleman. There's a few years they didn't. And came with new mantles, and a little funnel here is actually mine. But the thing is, that they did on stuff like this, you can see here that it's stepped, and the reason for that is when it goes down in the neck here, it fits tight so it doesn't tip out and you don't spill your fuel. Amazing that people used to think of stuff like that instead of the crappy junk we have today, where it kind of works and then you throw it away. But they still make lanterns, but this is the only one they still make. And this one is called a dual fuel, and it's designed so that you can burn Coleman or lantern fuel, which is what they call white gas because it's crystal clear. Now Coleman puts a little bit of a tint in it so you can actually see it, or you can use automotive gasoline. And the gasoline has additives in it that are not the best for these, and long term you have to disassemble them and clean the generator, which is the point in here that mixes the fuel in the air, and it'll gum it up over time, but it can still run 30 or 40 tanks of fuel through it before you have to clean it. So what I'm going to do is, we have a lot of power outages, which we normally do, and if I use this lantern, I'm going to take a quart of it and mix it 50-50 with lantern fuel and gasoline. That'll give me a good deal where I don't have to clean the generator so much. So anyway, we'll go through and talk about how these things operate. So we'll be right back. Okay, well, we're going to take this apart. You can see this is the knob that turns it on. The air and the fuel comes out here, and these little mantles go on these 2 tubes here. Now these are made out of cotton and rayon sometimes, and they have a chemical on them, and when the gas flame burns on them and stuff, they glow and put out a lot more heat than just a regular light would in a regular lantern. So the other thing on these, you have a pump here that pressurizes the fuel tank, and modern ones like this one and this one, the bottom of the pump right here, this cup, is made out of neoprene rubber, and the old ones were made out of leather, and both of them suffer from long time dry storage, is that these things get dried up and they won't work. And so the thing that I found on them, you can use 3-in-1 oil. Coleman way back used to use neat's foot oil, which is for using on leather. This stuff is what I use anymore. It's a Bellastol. This was stuff that they made clear back prior to World War I, I believe. But anyway, the thing it does, it softens rubber and treats leather and all kinds of lubricant, does all kinds of great stuff. And it's biodegradable and it's non-toxic. It's really fabulous stuff. So anyway, I've already put oil on this and kind of stretched it out. And so we'll put it back together and be right back. On the mantles, they have a couple little strings on them, and that we tie these on this ridge right here. What I like to do with them is put a first knot in it. Get your finger in here and kind of pull it down so it's round, like that. And we'll put these on here. And you can snug it up there, and so that's right on that little groove there, and get it nice and tight. And do our other knot. And you kind of want to fluff them up there. So anyway, I'll get both of these on here and be back in a bit. Okay, well, we've got the mantles on. So the next step is you have to light them and let them burn. And I know this isn't vintage, but my vintage lighter's not working right now, so I had to cheat. Okay, it takes about 2 minutes for these things to burn thoroughly, so we'll just set this aside for right now and let those burn down. One of the Achilles heels of these lanterns is if basically those are just ash when they're all burnt, so if it gets jostled they'll break apart, so you need to stock up on them. Now this lantern here, like I was saying, I think is the only one that Coleman still sells, and they're $115. And so this one still had fuel in it. I know that it has been more than 10 years since I fired it up, and I had to take the pump out and get it so it would pump up, and it's working good now. But let's see if it'll light. Like I say, it's been at least 10 years, so I'll get this over here and get a lighter in here somehow. Look at that. Instant light on 10-year-old fuel. That fuel doesn't go bad. I've used some of it. It was 30 years old. Worked fine. But the thing is, once this burns the excess fuel off and the globes get nice and bright like they're getting now, it puts out about the equivalent of a 100-watt light bulb. You can read with them and whatnot. And people say, oh, it's gas power, it's going to poison you and kill you with carbon monoxide. Well, it's not true. I have some old Coleman literature that said you could use the inside of a tent as long as you had about a 6 square inch area for ventilation. And it wasn't really for venting the bad fumes out, it was for basically for this thing using up the oxygen in the tent. So for more problem with oxygen depletion than anything else, which is really wouldn't happen. Most tents are pretty porous. But anyway, you can see it's really nice. This one has a little striker on it here. You can push it up and has a flint in it. But it's not working right at the moment. Like I said, it's been sitting for at least 10 years or more. So anyway, one other thing I just was going to talk about on the ballistol. The one thing on these lanterns when they sit too for a long time is there's a rubber seal inside the fuel cap here, and they get brittle, and so they're really hard to get out. You have to burn them out generally and dig them out. Well, the ballistol softens that stuff up, and so since I've started using that, I've not had to replace any of the gaskets on these. And like I say, on the pumps to pressurize them, I use it on those to keep them nice and supple and keep them working. So anyway, yeah, it looks like they're pretty well burned. There's still a few little embers on there, but anyway, let's put it together and see what happens here. Okay, well, I'll show you the inner seal on this cap here. That's the little black part of it in there. There's little slots right here on the outside of this cap too, so that you don't want to leave them stored with pressure in them, so when you open this up, the air pushes down instead of spraying it out all over you or the table. So anyway, I'll put some fuel in here. The best way is to have the spout up to the top, then you won't be spilling it all over everything. Okay, well, as soon as we're ready to light it, we'll be right back. Okay, what you do is the pump is in a closed position. You open it up one full turn. There's a little hole in the center. You put your thumb over that and you pump it up. You pump about 40 to 50 strokes. Okay, so now if the generator's not plugged on it, it should light off. So let's see what happens here. And it takes a second for it to burn off the excess fuel there and get the mantles so that they start glowing nice and bright. While it's doing that, this series of lamp is kind of based on this. This is a 1955 model 200A. This one's a single mantle instead of the double like this one. But you can see that the tank, or the font as they call it, pretty much the same. And this late model lamp is based on a 220 series, which is this one here. This is a 1951. It has a nickel-plated font on it, fuel tank. And it has a lens in it to scare the bugs off, an amber lens. So anyway, they just kept improving and making changes over the years. Now this one's not glowing real bright yet, so I think we need a little more air in it. So you can see them get a lot brighter now. We're starting to put some more air pressure in there. Well, I'd say that's pretty good for free. So anyway, like I say in the comments, if you'd like to learn more about Coleman's and antique lamps in general, and old stoves too, let me know and I'll put together a couple of videos. And so we'll be back after a little bit with vintage BS. Well, for our version of vintage BS today, I'm gonna be sticking with lanterns. This old rusty piece of crapola is an Embury. It was made in Warsaw, New York, and they made these from 1939 until 1953 when the company sold out to the Dietz Lantern Company, which is still around. This thing had been sitting for, I don't know how long I've had it, but forever. And I thought, well, I'll see if I can get it to work. So I get everything freed up on it, and the wick was really bad on it, so I cut off half of it and turned it over. And inside the tank was nice and clean. And so we'll just give it a little test here. So anyway, just push this down, locks. You can get in there to light it. Now these use lamp oil, which is what they call paraffin. It's thicker than kerosene or diesel fuel, although you can burn it in these, but the kerosene is stinky. So this stuff you can actually use it inside, it doesn't stink. But anyway, let's see if we can get it to work here and get the wick turned up. And there we go. And then you can adjust the flame up or down. If it's too high, it'll get smoky. Well, I think we're going to have a pretty hard winter, all signs looking towards it, so remember your Boy Scout motto, be prepared. So we're prepared. With no electricity, we got light and heat. So we'll see you in the next exciting video. Vintage is best, for sure.